Yeah, it's the place to be.
Sup?
1, 2, 3.
You get me.
And this is J. G. Yeah. Fucking hell.
Is that a fish on it?
Just take it. It's a wide angle. Today I want to talk about ACL injuries, so anterior cruciate ligament. Johnny, tricker extraordinaire. How did you? What were you doing when you tore it?
There's a move called a cork, which is
A cork? What is that? Like a cork in a bottle?
Yeah, and you go pop and my knee. Ah! So basically, essentially it's a one-footed back somersault.
Right.
That as you're at the peak of the somersault, you do a full twist. So it's a full twisting back somersault, but off one leg.
And did you feel pain straight away? Was there anything?
It was more of a. I was doing it showing off, of course, and I landed. My feet stayed in the same place. The essential story that you always get: feet stand in the same place, and my knee carried on pivoting, and I just felt something go.
But what we tend to see with ACL injuries is that it's either direct trauma to the knee or a rapid deceleration, so a sudden having to slow down and control motion. So we either get a kind of internal rotation.
It was that.
Like this, where the foot stays in the same position but the knee continues to go around, and a hyperextension at the knee, so an over straightening, or an external rotation, and a valgus stress where the knee kind of collapses inwards like this. If you think of your ACL, so this is your femur right here, and then the tibia at the bottom. Your ACL connects the femur to the tibia and prevents excessive anterior translation like this. So if you're getting an excessive over straightening, hyperextension, that is one of the main mechanisms of injury for isolated ACL tears. So you have an anterior medial band that is slack with the knee in full extension like this, but you just go ahead and start bending your knee upwards, and it becomes tighter the further into flexion you go, and a posterior lateral band that's taut in extension and becomes slacker the further you go into flexion. There's also an intermediate band that is taut through the whole range of motion. But generally what we see is that when we're testing for ACL instability, in full extension the ACL takes up 75% of the anterior force. What I mean by that is this tibia coming forward in relation to the femur. So it takes up 75% of that force in full extension. Just start bending the knee up. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Stop there. So in 30 degrees flexion, it takes up 87% of the force. Keep going for me. And stop there. And at 90 degrees, 85% of the force. Test for this. In 30 degrees flexion, knee flexion, we can do the Lachman's test, where you fix the femur distally, and you sort of have an anterior glide of the tibia in relation to the femur, and then the anterior jaw test, where I'm just going to squash your foot here, where you do the same thing except at 90 degrees. Now the disadvantages with that test are that you can get resistance from the hamstrings and the posterior horn of the medial meniscus. So it doesn't provide as accurate as a result as the Lachman's test, but it's still another good one to check over if you suspect an ACL injury. Could you walk straight afterwards?
Well, I tried stepping on it and it just gave way.
Right, so instability.
But it was a hyperextension, so my knee would just collapse inwards.
Right,
which is hyperextension on its own is horrible, but any ligament in there, it goes even further. So excruciating pain. I hobbled to the emergency room.
Yeah.
I had a physio there look at it, and I've got naturally lax ligaments anyway.
Oh.
So it's hard. It's hard for anyone to tell with me if it's a tear, a complete rupture.
Because you've got quite lax.
Because I've got quite lax. Well, it's easier to tell a complete rupture because if you've seen anyone with a torn ACL, there is no boundary. There is nothing stopping it. It will literally float until the skin stops it.
Yeah. And what kind of rehab exercises do you get afterwards to do?
After my operation?
Yeah, after post-op.
Started off small, so little stuff like I would have to put my foot on something like this and just lift up. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would have to do proprioception training, so I just stayed on balance on my leg with my eyes closed.
Okay.
And doing mini squats, so I'd stand up and just dip the knee a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it upped because for the gymnastics they wanted to strengthen this knee up, so I used to have to do 300 one-legged squats with so put my leg
300.
Oh. But I'd have to put my leg on a higher object and literally step up and down without my foot touching the floor, but with a kettlebell in my hand.
Oh yeah, okay. So proprioceptive training, post any kind of ligament injuries, especially with ACL, is a big deal to prevent reoccurrence, because like I said before, the proprioceptive input that you'd normally get from the ACL to avoid overextension of the knee is pretty much gone after you've had the replacement. So the input then has to go onto the muscles, especially the hamstrings, because of their insertions on the tibia, to resist that anterior movement, that hyperextension, to stop that, just like the exercises Johnny was explaining there. So question for today: end stage rehab exercises for ACL, especially to do with the hamstring. What are your ideas? Let me know, post them, and that's pretty much it from me. And that's it from you. Yeah. So we'll see you there.
Don't listen to the emergency room as well if they check your knee and say it's fine, because they said my knee was fine and then I completely snapped the ligament.
You don't need to worry about it. You see your knee there, it's just like flapping around.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Yeah, so just put plaster on it and you'll be fine. Yeah.
Plaster on an early night.
And some Calpol, just to be safe.
Calpol.
Peace.